if you're beating yourself up or you have these horrible things to say about yourself, then this video is for you today. Now, these are the kind of things I talk about here. So if you want more of this, like, follow, subscribe, do all of that stuff just so you can be alerted, hit the notification bell. I'm going to talk a lot about this though. Various things. It's going to be about triggers. It's going to be about you taking accountability. It's going to be about accepting that others don't have to do as you would. So it's a lot of that because a lot of times people are just not ready for it. But today I want to talk to you about you beating yourself up. Beating yourself up is never going to give you the outcome in which you seek. There's never in the history of the human race has anybody ever bullied themselves into doing better. No one never's like, well, you're so stupid, you got to do better. Just because you're taking the actions, you're still holding yourself to some perfectionist standard. So you're holding yourself to this standard out of perfectionism. Yes, we know it can. I got to put my sunglasses on. It's bright out here. You're holding yourself to this standard that somebody else has established to you, and you're allowing yourself to feel less than if you're not reaching their bar. Okay? Now, here's a perfect example of that. Oh, I can't talk. Is, I don't know, you're looking back now and you're going, why didn't I get out of that relationship? I should have got out of that relationship sooner. You were in the middle of the relationship. You were either in denial, you were in attachment, you were in hope, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But you were in that then. See, what happens is you look backwards at what you coulda, shoulda, woulda done. You're going backwards. But you're going backwards with knowledge you have today, right? So if you're like, well, look, this guy was a total jerk or this person was a total jerk. Why did I stay? Because, again, those things. It's no different than if I said, I should have played those lottery numbers last night. Probably wasn't going to play those lottery numbers. Probably was never going to happen. There were going to be numbers I would have probably never played, maybe one. But you can't do that to yourself because you're beating yourself up based on the knowledge you have now on the actions you did or did not take in the past. It's just not going to serve you. And what's the end game of that for you, right? Seriously, ask yourself this. What's that end game? Well, I got to do better. Again, you're not going to bully yourself into doing that because even if you say, okay, I'm going to take better actions, which by the way, yes, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to grow. Yes. That's beautiful. Never regret the past. Don't regret the past. Use it as a learning tool. Lessons and learning can't be regrets. Listen, I'm not saying don't improve from it. I'm not saying be like, oh, F it, it is what it is. But don't sit there and judge yourself on that, right? Because then also what happens is then the dynamics also change in relationships because now you start expecting things from other people, right? Now you're holding people to this perfection standard. And people are flawed. Human beings are flawed. You are flawed. I am flawed. Human beings around you are flawed. But what you do get to decide is what you will and will not tolerate from other people and what you will and will not tolerate from yourself. Because that's a promise in which you're keeping to yourself, right? Like, I mean, honestly. And so every time you get in that headspace of like, oh my God, I should have done this. Why didn't I do this? That was stupid. I was dumb. I could have seen this. They got to do that because then what happens is you project all of that onto somebody else. So when you are projecting onto somebody else, now there's these expectations or you start to go into a little level of manipulation, not intentional manipulation at all, but you're trying to manipulate the situation to prevent someone else from going through that situation. Got to tell you, you got to let somebody hit the brick wall. You got to let that happen because you're not always going to be there to fix things. It's also not your job. It's also not your job to prevent the train wreck here. It just isn't. People have to learn their own lessons. They have to learn their own things. It's not for you to prevent these lessons. Because let's pretend for a minute you are doing this. You're preventing all of these things. You're trying to prevent the pain. You're trying to prevent the lessons. This is what you're doing. You get abducted by aliens. I don't know. You're just not on this planet anymore. Now these people have no tools. They're like, oh, daggone, I can't call that person. Oh, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do with this information? Because there's no tools. We have got, as a human being, it's great to have guidance. Like I'm trying to guide you, other people are guiding you. You got to make these moves. You've got to make the moves. You've got to say, this is, wow, I made that mistake. Yes. So when you start saying to yourself, is this the right decision? Am I making the right decision? What if it doesn't work out? Okay, so what? So what? You take the job and you left the job that you thought, it's not great. Moved to this job thinking the grass was greener. You find out later on it isn't. Now you go, I should have never left that job. You did. Let it go. Let it go. To be like, I should never left. Okay, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And that also doesn't indicate, I'm always going to make bad decisions. What lesson did you learn from taking this job? Did you take it impulsively because you were upset with the boss? Are you learning from this not to be impulsive because of something that you don't like emotionally, right? You don't like something that your spouse did, so you go and you rack up $800 worth of credit card bills because you're going to prove them a point. That's your ego. That's your ego. So what did you learn? Again, maybe you took that job impulsively. Okay, let me pump my brakes. Okay, I took the job because it was more money. It was $5,000 more, $10,000 more. Let's up the game. $10,000 more a year. And that sounded good because you focused on the money. It looked like it was going to be flexible. You just didn't realize the level of commitment that it was going to take to make that $10,000 extra. Maybe you didn't do the research. You didn't ask the questions. You didn't do those things. It's not you making bad decisions. It's evaluating. Use that job change that you're like, this has become a nightmare. And you can also go get another job. Don't go backwards. We don't have to worry about going back to this company. You got annoyed with that company anyway. And the acceptance that you're dealing with other human beings. There's going to be people who are going to trigger you. There's going to be people who are going to make you mad. That's just life 101. But if you're taking the lessons in which you've learned and without judging yourself and being like, I suck, I can never make good decisions, I'll never find a good job because I'm making bad decisions, and what if this doesn't work? Stop trying to make things work. If they're either going to work or you're going to learn a lesson. In turn, they always work out. But you got to give yourself that grace, because you can't sit there and be like, well, you should have known better. Well, why? Why should you have known better? Well, they told me. People told me not to do that, and I did it anyway. Okay. That's okay too. You have to learn your own lessons. No need to blame anybody else. No need to beat yourself up, and no need to get angry or self-loathing when you've made a decision that in turn doesn't pan out. So what? Let's learn the lesson. And the lesson is never about another person. The lesson isn't, well, I learned that people are jerks. No, that's not the lesson. Stop projecting outwardly. It's not the other person. It's you. You can learn. You can give yourself grace of learning. But you got to give yourself that possibility. You got to give yourself that opportunity. You got to give yourself that opportunity in order to accept that these are lessons. Life will always work out for you, just maybe not as you want it to. And listen, some things are going to feel out of your control. Like, remember, I lived in a van with my dad. I went through a lot of stuff with him. I did not feel as though I felt for a long time a little victim-y. Like, oh my God, why is all this happening to me? I didn't realize then that it was setting me up to help people like I do now in my profession. You don't know that at 9, 10, 12, 15 years old. You have no idea. But that's why you can't worry about finding the answers today. The answers might never exist today. So here's your homework. I want you to really think of something that you keep beating yourself up about that you should have did. You should have did. That you should have done, like my grammar. And accept that this is a lesson. And the lesson isn't that you're stupid. The lesson isn't any of that. The lesson could be, it's out of my control. The lesson could be, it's because it included another person. Things could have been different. You don't know that they could have been better. Stop falling in love with that fantasy, but be gentle with yourself. Extrapolate what the lesson is, integrate it, be thankful for it, keep it moving, because you deserve all of that.